And we'll begin with our emergency procedures, please, Clerk.
Before we begin, I will go over the emergency response plan for this room. In an emergency, everyone must evacuate through the nearest safe exit. Those seated in the gallery take direction from security to evacuate. Council takes direction from myself to evacuate. After evacuating the room, please proceed to a stairwell. Take the stairs to ground level and evacuate the building through the doors marked emergency exit and go to the muster point. Do not take an elevator or walk through the city room. Anyone with limited mobility should identify themselves to security or the meeting clerk during an evacuation. Finally, please speak with security or myself if you require first aid. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And at this time, I'd like to acknowledge that we meet on the traditional land of Treaty 6 territory in the Métis homeland, and acknowledge the diverse Indigenous peoples whose ancestors' footsteps have marked this territory for centuries, such as Cree, Dene, Saulteaux, Blackfoot, Nakota Iska, as well as Métis and Inuit, and now settlers from around the world. I will begin with the roll call of committee members. Mayor Sohi's not available this morning. Councillor Knack.
Good morning.
Good morning. Councillor Principe.
Good morning.
Good morning. Councillor Rutherford.
Good morning.
Good morning. And Public Member Burrows.
Good morning.
Good morning. And Public Member Matamambe.
Good morning.
Good morning. All right. We have a bit of a new procedure here for pecuniary interest. So before we consider today's agenda, I will ask all members of council present and public members if they have any pecuniary or conflicts of interest to declare regarding any of the items to be discussed. A pecuniary interest exists when an item could monetarily affect a member of council, their employee, or a family member. A conflict of interest exists when an item could affect a private interest of a member of council, their employer, or family member. Do any members of council have a pecuniary or conflict of interest to declare? And either of the public members? Okay. Hearing no declared pecuniary or conflicts of interest, we will move to the adoption of the agenda.
I'll move adoption of the agenda.
With any changes?
With the addition of 9.2 and the deletion of 9.3 and 9.4.
Thank you, Councillor Rutherford. Please vote.
I am a yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'm a yes as well.
Thank you, Councillor Knack. We have all the votes.
Display the votes, please. And that is carried. And could I have someone move approval of the minutes?
Happy to move the approval of the minutes from the June 24th, 2025 Audit Committee meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Knack. Any questions? No? Please vote.
I'm a yes.
Thank you, Councillor Knack.
I'm a yes as well.
Thank you, Burrows. We have all the votes.
Display the votes, please. And that is carried. Any protocol items? None that I am aware of, so we'll go on to select items for debate. Please sign up. If nobody's signing up, I will select 7.1 and 7.2 to be dealt with together. We do have a couple public speakers for those. And Councillor Rutherford?
That's the one that I was going to select.
All right, okay. Councillor Principe? Oh, Councillor, oh. Member Matamambe?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll select 7.3, 7.4, 7.5, 7.6 as well.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Principe?
I'd like to select item 9.1.
9.1, thank you.
Actually, you know what? No, I won't select. I can ask the question offline.
Okay, thank you very much then. So looks like we will be selecting 7.1, 7.2, 7.3, 7.4, 7.5, and 7.6. And if we can then vote on the reports not selected.
I'll move that.
Thank you, Councillor Dack.
And I'm a yes.
Thank you, Councillor Knack.
I'm a yes as well.
Thank you, Mr. Burrows. We have all the votes.
Display the votes, please. That is carried. Now we do have a couple of requests to speak. And I'll move that audit committee hear from the following speakers and panels where appropriate on items 7.1, 7.2, Office of the City Auditor Recommendation Follow-up Dashboard Report, Beverly Zubot from the Residential Infill Working Group in person, and Jan Hardstaff. Oh, we had a late minute and now you're saying no, she's not.
I'm not speaking. I'm just here to answer questions.
Oh, to answer questions. Okay, thank you very much,
Yep.
Jan. Any questions from my colleagues? No, please vote.
I'm a yes.
Thank you, Councillor Knack.
I'm a yes.
Thank you, Mr. Burrows. Just waiting on one more, Councillor Rutherford.
Yes.
Thank you. We have all the votes.
Display the votes, please. That is carried. And we have no request for specific time on agenda. Do we have councillor inquiries? And no other reports to be dealt with at a different meeting, nor to reschedule. No unfinished business. And we'll move on to public reports, 7172. And we have a presentation from our auditor. Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning. Today I'm presenting to you the recommendation follow-up report as at August 14th, 2025. Recommendation follow-up work is performed by multiple people. The report you get is prepared by Leslie Glasbeek and Jeannie Kim. The dashboard is maintained by our data scientists, Alfred Apia and Jasmine Zip, and the work to follow up on the recommendations is performed by the lead auditors and project managers. I also want to recognize and thank the administration for the effort they put into working with our auditors and to support our follow-up work. The recommendation follow-up process is essential for an effective audit process. It ensures council, administration, and the Office of the City Auditor know that prior recommendations and risks are being addressed. In our last follow-up report, there were 50 outstanding recommendations. We made 3 new recommendations in the 2 audit reports discussed at the last audit committee meeting, and we closed 11 recommendations since that meeting. 2 of those were closed because they're no longer applicable, and the remaining 9 addressed risks and led to improvements related to Blatchford Development's performance management, DAT's eligibility process and contractor monitoring, the city's fraud risk management program, and Waste Services data integrity and its service verification application. There are now 42 outstanding recommendations, with 8 that are overdue. Of those 8, 4 are more than 1 year overdue and 4 are less than 1 year overdue. And as well, I'd like to point out that we have closed 87% of recommendations due in 2025 on time. I think Eddie may also have a presentation.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to help introduce this update. I want to outline our progress for you as I did last time. We're in a better place today, keeping up with new audit recommendations, clearing out backlog of overdue recommendations. We've closed 11 items since the last update and closed 22 to date in 2025. Like the auditor said, we've closed 87% of all recommendations due to date in 2025 on time, and so far, you'll see in page 2 of the auditor's follow-up report, 13 out of 15 recommendations. That's up from closing 47% of recommendations due in 2024 on time last year, and then we've reduced the number of outstanding recommendations to 8. They're all on target to meet revised due dates, most of which are in September and December. We're continuing to make progress with DATS. There's 2 recommendations that have been closed in the DATS audit. One was closed in July, well ahead of the September deadline, And then improvements include creating standard pre-screening checklists, making forms shorter, developing and updating decision-making key and quality assurance processes, and improving contractor monitoring. This was all about streamlining the process, ensuring fairness, and ensuring compliance with contracts. We will work to we have more work to do this fall and winter, expanding inspections on the safety codes, permits and inspections, supporting council's review of mandates as well for civic agencies governance, monitoring and evaluating programs with things like the homelessness response recommendation, grants and subsidies, updating documents and records and historical resource recommendations, IT asset management. And we're also trying to improve how we deliver programs, services, and projects. Addressing the auditor's recommendations is part of that, and it's part of our commitment to accountability to to council and to Edmontonians. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Robar. We do have a public speaker, so before we have that, I will just go over what the expectations are for public speakers, although I'm sure you're quite familiar with them. Before we begin our discussion, I want to share my expectations for the conduct of everyone participating to ensure a safe and inclusive environment and workplace. These expectations apply to both in-person and virtual attendees. Hearing from the public is an important part of Council's process, so we know the full diversity of opinions that exists in our community. As meeting chair, my role is not to moderate the nature of the content being discussed, but to ensure behaviors support a safe, respectful, and neutral space for my colleagues, city employees, and the public. Disrespectful comments, including those directed at individual staff members or other speakers, profane language or gestures, and behaviors such as shouting, cheering, or clapping, or political campaigning will not be tolerated. In addition, use of the raise hand feature, chat, emoticon response, or AI note-taking tools in the virtual meeting are not permitted. I will direct the clerk to have security remove anyone violating these expectations. I will not provide any additional warnings. Once removed, the person will not be permitted to rejoin the meeting. This meeting is being live streamed and everyone is welcome to watch online. And I will call down our one speaker. Beverly Zubat, please. Did you want to come sit here? Thank you.
Good morning. This is the first time I've spoken at the Audit Committee, so this is exciting for me.
Well, I was thinking, is this the first time we've had a speaker at Audit Committee? Wow, this is great. Okay, go ahead, please.
Yeah, so I'm here today on behalf of the Residential Infill Working Group, which was formed in 2019, I believe, and we did so to advocate for improvements to infill construction and builder compliance with the National Building Code, particularly during the demolition and excavation phases of infill. And we've been working very hard over those years trying to prevent damage and safety hazards during those phases. And we're still working hard because we still aren't there yet. There have been some improvements, but there's still work to be done for sure. So I came here specifically to provide two messages. First of all, it's important that the City of Edmonton make the Safety Codes branch a priority. It is the most important branch, particularly when we're trying to rebuild the city. This branch ensures that buildings are safe and the public is safe and free from property damages during the construction phase. So if we're going to do, right now, with the record number of building permits, this is more important than ever. So I'm hoping that the city has increased the resources to equivalent to the number of permits increases. And I'm not sure that has happened. So I'm here to make sure that the branch is given priority, that it has good leadership, it has the resources, it has what it needs to operate as best as possible. Secondly, I'm here to speak for transparency. We need more public transparency, especially with the Safety Codes branch. From an outsider, it appears the branch is struggling, but I just met the branch manager, who has been there since February, and we had no idea. We thought the position was vacant, and no matter how often we called 311 and asked who is the branch manager, who is the acting branch manager. Maybe that's why they couldn't find the acting branch manager, because there was a branch manager. So it was very pleasant to meet Steve today. And there has been no 2025 data from the Safety Codes branch on the dashboard. So once again, you start to wonder, is there something wrong? What's happening? So there were flags up for us, and that's why we responded to the auditor's report. So the other thing that happened in 2025 is that we didn't get the annual report from the infill compliance team, which was to conclude the Safety Codes branch. And so that, again, left the public wondering, what is happening to the Safety Codes branch? So I come to you today to urge you to make the Safety Codes branch more transparent, continue to have those annual updates, continue to have a data dashboard that is updated regularly. And I'm sure there's good reasons why it hasn't been, but we need to know those reasons. And I don't know if the questions that we had that haven't been answered yet for us have been distributed to you, but we want to know a follow-up not only on the audit report, but the follow-up on some of the motions made by City Council. Have they been followed through? Is there a coordinated compliance team? And I heard this morning, by just a brief meeting with Steve and Chad, that indeed there is going to be one. It's to be created. But that's a year ago. Certainly we can move faster than that. And what additional resources are there for the branch? We need to know that. We need to know whether how the new programs that they described last time are doing. I've run out of time, but so many questions.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions for Ms. Zubat? I'm thinking most of your comments precipitated questions to administration, so thank you very much for coming in today. Appreciate it. Okay, do we want to sign up now for questions to administration? Councillor Knack, go ahead, please. I did, but go ahead.
Okay, all right, sure. Thank you. Appreciate the update and, appreciate that, this is the update on all of the audit reports, but there's one, the most overdue is the one that we just heard our speaker from. So maybe, I guess, could I pose that question to Ms. Petrin and team? How that's looking for that particular audit, and then how groups like our IWG can get answers to a lot of those questions if they're not feeling like they're getting answered right now. How do we close that gap between the two?
Councillor Knack, I'm going to pass it to Travis Pollock, the branch manager for development services. Also here is Steve Goodwin, the director of our safety code permit and inspection. So I'll pass to Travis initially.
Thanks. So originally the audit included 5 recommendations, all but one of them, recommendation 2, has been satisfied. Recommendation 2 is concerned with expanding the automated inspection services through artificial intelligence. This recommendation, as noted in the dashboard report, has been pushed back twice with an expected completion date at the end of this year. The problems that have arose through this is because of the model that we use, it requires highly technical expertise of data scientists, et cetera, which have had trouble resourcing. So that has been rectified and we're moving forward. Currently, the system is operable. It is taking in data from all of our inspections and also advancing some of those inspections that don't require a human interface. So the system is working. We're just monitoring and collecting more data to ensure that it is working properly. Councillor, just in terms of some of those other questions that Ms. Subat rose, you're aware of the 2024 fall SOBA budget adjustment, which saw our compliance resources move over into the Planning Development Business Reserve. That included, as well as that, the 2 positions for the Coordinating Compliance Office. That office, or that team, is being stood up currently. It has its lead, which was hired in June of this year. So we're building out the team. As you can imagine, there's some behind the scenes work in terms of how the team is going to operate and integrate with the other compliance enforcement teams across the city. So that is advancing as well. Happy to take any other questions that you may have.
What's the timeline for that full team to be set up? Do we have a ETA?
So it is up and running, just in terms of working itself through the various hoops. The team should be fully operational by the end of this year.
Okay, great. How do we, what about sort of the broader piece? You know, I hear Ms. Subat's comment that supposedly they were calling 311 from as far back as February to get the name, even just the name of the branch. I'm wondering how we close or the name of the branch manager. How do we make sure that the communication's happening with groups like this? Because it is such obviously a big topic, and so I think it should be more than just our urban planning committee meetings where those conversations are happening. So what does that look like going forward? Because it feels like maybe the suggestion that I heard from Ms. Subat is that they're not able to get answers to questions that they have, and so I'm wondering how we close that gap.
No, appreciate that. 311 is only as good as the scripts that are provided to them. Those might not have been updated. However, we have constant contact with both Bev and Ms. Hartstaff through the residential working group. We're happy to take those questions. We received their email or submission to audit committee about the questions, and so we'll be getting back to them and happy to create those connections moving forward.
Okay, so all those questions that came in through as of, I guess, 35 minutes ago and then 6 days ago, you'll be working your way through to provide updates to that group, correct?
Yeah, and also creating those connections. As mentioned, Steve Goodwin, our new director of safety codes, as of February this year, just met. They'll be continuing that relationship.
Excellent. Okay, I don't have enough time for more. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Knack. Councillor Rutherford?
Yeah, just a few questions. The theme around transparency came up with regards to the speaker this morning. With the project implementation plan, is it voluntary right now, or are we requiring all developers to complete it?
All developers are required to complete it.
So it is not a voluntary. Do we share? So there's a request to share that with surrounding properties. We don't. We notify of the demolition to surrounding properties now, right?
Through the issuance of the demolition permit, the directly abutting properties are notified.
But the project implementation plan isn't shared with surrounding neighbors.
Correct. So part of the project implementation plan, it steers applicants to create those communications and relationships with the directly abutting property owners and residents. However, through the Safety Codes Act, there is no ability to make sure that happens. There is essentially a good neighbor development of a relationship there that we lean on through the permitting process, but it can't be enforced through the Safety Codes Act.
Yeah, that's because that was my next thing, is that I've seen this same tension in the area of problem properties initiative, where people are upset, they think that nothing's being done, but there's freedom of information and protection of privacy requirements as well, that we can't, like an officer can't just say, oh yeah, this is the fines we've issued to this property, or this is the whatever we've issued to this property. Is there same limitations on the building code side?
Very similar. However, that doesn't mean that we can't get better in terms of creating those feedback loops to the people that have noticed a compliance issue or have complained or put in a ticket to 311 to say that we are looking at it and it's being dealt with, but we can't go into details into what those enforcement and compliance measures have been.
Okay, and then how often do you update the dashboard? Is it biannually? Is it annually? Is it quarterly? What's the target for the dashboard?
So the target for the dashboard is annually. The 2025 update hasn't occurred yet. The last one was in 2024. We're currently revamping how we bring that data forward. It was heavily manual the last 3 years that have been gone through. So we're looking to automate it so that not only is it annually, but there's more up-to-date information on it instead of just that one point in time.
Okay.
So the 2025 update hasn't been completed yet.
But there's also, what information does the dashboard have specifically about safety compliance? Does it just say the number of like inspections, the number of like what? Because the dashboard would also say the number of permits issued and what unit count and where, those kind of things, right?
Yeah, so the dashboard looks at the permit numbers and the compliance activities, the number of complaints, and the types of complaints as well.
Okay.
So if it's a excavation or a different type of complaint.
And the construction accountability program is also set to come online in 2026, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And that will be communicated to stakeholders that have a heavy vested interest in infill and making sure that it's working?
Yeah, it'll be heavily communicated to both industry groups as well as residents groups.
Perfect. I have another line of questioning about DATS, but I'll come back around.
Thank you, Councillor Rutherford. Councillor Principe?
Oh, thank you, Chair Wright. I do have a question about the city's response to homelessness. So it's my understanding that Homeward Trust was tasked with creating the plan. Is that correct? Or who is tasked with creating the plan?
Good morning, Council.
Hi.
This is Hanny Kwan. Sorry, Jen, I'll jump in if that's okay.
Sounds good.
So, yes, to date, Homeward Trust is the organization in Edmonton that is tasked with stewarding and creating a community plan to respond to homelessness.
Okay, so my concern is that, from my understanding, this audit does not include Homeward Trust, though. That's where my concern is. If they're tasked with creating the plan, I'm not sure why they wouldn't be a part of this.
I believe we're talking about a different plan. The audit recommendation went to administration, and it was the plan that they created that we're waiting for the evaluation of. How they're working with Homeward Trust? I'm going to let them respond beyond that.
Okay.
Yeah, the difference between the corporate plan is that outlines what the city of Edmonton is doing relative to homelessness, and it would complement and work with a community plan, but the city is not responsible for the community plan, so it would be awkward for the auditor to audit that.
Right, so how many plans do we have?
So the City of Edmonton has one plan to respond to homelessness, as well as an affordable housing strategy, of which the Homelessness and Housing Services Plan is a component of. And then there's separately, but still, integrated as best as possible, a community plan to respond to homelessness.
Okay, and who tasked Homeward Trust with creating a plan?
So Homeward Trust has agreements with the federal and provincial governments, funding agreements to aggregate funds, distribute those funds, and steward the response as a part of their agreements.
All right, and I'm assuming the city works very closely with Homeward Trust?
Correct.
So that we're not creating two separate plans that aren't
Correct.
working together?
Yes.
Okay. All right. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Principe. Do you need to take the chair in committee? Nope, okay. I'll just go ahead with my questions then. Just in regards to the plan with Homeward Trust then, so the city, would almost take recommendations from Homeward Trust, like to what's within our purview in order for them to successfully undertake their plan?
The community plan is an effort that involves a number of agencies working in the sector, and I don't know that I would articulate it as the city taking recommendations from Homeward Trust as much as we're working together to make the most sense of who's got the jurisdiction to do what relative to that collective response.
Okay, so we take on what we have the jurisdiction to work on.
Correct, and the corporate plan was meant to carve out more precisely so that it was clear what it is the city does and does not do.
Okay. Perfect. Okay, thank you very much. I will get back to the infill discussion. Where is Mr. Goodwin? There you are. Hello. Okay, just wanted to put a face to the name. Thank you very much. And then I also just wanted to make sure that it wasn't a matter of lack of financial resources. It was just finding the right person to fill that vacancy. Is that correct?
Councillor Wright, we did have someone, the previous director left the city and we went through the hiring process. While somebody is in the hiring process, we have someone that's acting in the role. And then Steve was successful in February.
Okay. So I just wanted to make sure that we weren't lacking in those financial resources. I just have a question, because with sort of infill being in the news, is a good chunk of maybe the concerns related to the compliance and fences falling over, holes caving in?
Councillor Wright, I think there are a number of complexities around what's happening in infill. There's change happening in our communities, whether it be zoning changes, development permits, and then as a project moves through the implementation part where the construction is happening, there's concerns that might happen around the type of built form, how things are being constructed, or how things are being communicated to the neighbors. And so we have different points in the process where we look to communicate with Edmontonians or with the neighbors about what's happening. And certainly we encourage, strong relationship building between a builder and their surrounding community. When the city receives complaints through 311, which is the best place for Edmontonians to make a complaint, because then we can document and track it appropriately. But then we respond with our infill compliance folks, depending on the type of complaint, whether it's a development complaint, garbage, safety, etc. And so we send the right resources out to deal with what's been heard.
Okay, and 311, it also gets prioritized, the greater the safety concern, I would assume, the quicker it gets addressed?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much for that. I just have a question to Mr. Robar. You said we're in a better place today, which is good news. And I'm looking more so at like the city's fraud risk management, things related to the ERM which is actually in report 7.7, which we didn't pull. But I guess if we don't meet the deadlines for meeting the recommendations in these areas, does that put us in a more risky position?
Well, I think any time that we're looking at responding to audit recommendations, the goal is to try and achieve them in the timelines that we have. But if we're not doing that, then we're assessing those risks and reevaluating where we stand and the level of risk that we're taking on by pushing that out. So anytime we do that, we're doing that with the thoughtfulness of what does the impact look like and how do we mitigate those impacts as we go through the reassessment of what that risk looks like to us as a city. So I would say anytime we've moved that out, we're able to manage that risk within the portfolio.
Okay, and the auditor would then look at those recommendations, the due dates, whether that risk is increasing or sort of staying the same?
Yeah, as they implement the recommendations, the risks are mitigated. Sometimes we have to wait in order to see data, or so some things take longer than that. And so the risk may be mitigated, we just can't close the recommendation. If no work is being done, then those risks are obviously still there that we identified. But things do change over time as well, so the prioritization has to happen.
Okay, thank you very much. And we will now go back to Councillor Rutherford.
Yeah, thank you. Just a few questions on DATS. First and foremost, on recommendation 1, it's good to see the assessment and guidelines increasing. I was a little bit nervous about this one having unintended consequences of being a bit too rigid and or people that are currently getting DAT services now no longer being eligible. So I just wanted to ask administration in the rollout of this, what kind of criteria are we having? Has anybody now been deemed ineligible for DATs? Or, yeah, if you could just walk me through.
I think Carrie's online, so she can respond to that.
I can, yes. So the good news is it doesn't change the criteria to make it more restrictive. So it should be a very smooth transition. This was really about strengthening the documentation, ensuring consistency, clarifying when riders would need to get the third-party assessment completed. So there should be very minimal, if any, impacts on riders.
We haven't added more barriers to getting service.
For sure not. That was one of the objectives going into it, is to make sure that we, minimize the likelihood of, as you said, having those unintended impacts on riders that were negative, and really about responding to the auditor feedback of you need consistent documentation being reviewed during each decision-making process.
If somebody applies for DATS and then doesn't meet the criteria, is there any appeal process?
So we work individually with each person to assess, and then there's a couple of different options. So internally, we have an escalation that people often use to share their feedback, dig in a bit deeper. And then ultimately, we have the ombudsperson available as well to do a more formal review. And we've definitely suggested that to people in the past if they feel that they're not being heard.
Okay. And then on the recommendation 3, can you just explain, I didn't really understand, I guess to the city auditor first, this last sentence in your report that talks about the team updated their contracts with contractors to make charging services assessments discretionary. These formal controls help enforce contract terms, are no longer mandatory when contractors do not meet targets, however, are available when needed. I didn't really understand what that meant and how it was addressing the recommendation.
So this came about as a result of the contract review that was done as part of the audit. We found that the contracts were all sort of designed from a template and had very standardized clauses included, kind of assess penalties based on contract monitoring. They quite often were intentionally not applying these. I think it's likely, and I don't want to speak on behalf of administration, but likely for sort of relationship management purposes, if you will. So our suggestion was to clean up those contracts and also to monitor. So they kind of had 2 different ways of potentially approaching just sort of getting in line with being able to monitor that and apply what was in the contract.
And how does that, because so it's great that we clean up the contracts we've kind of at least made it clear that it's discretionary so that it applies to what's like the rules in practice or the rules in use. So I get that. But I think if I remember correctly with that audit, there was a flag from the city auditor that there wasn't a lot, that sometimes things were coming in and there was no sort of double check on the invoicing. And so I just want to make sure that this actually tightens that up. Or is that a separate recommendation that's still outstanding?
That is a separate recommendation.
Okay, okay. Okay, so
And
the
maybe I can
contractor, sorry, just a sec, the contractor monitoring and applying formal controls is not related to the invoicing.
Correct, they're separate, if you don't mind me saying, Jason. And I'll just indicate, we've already implemented controls for that other piece that you referenced. So looking forward to closing that one off with the auditor. And, you know, our objective is as soon as we get things implemented, we'd like to close off things. So that's why one of these items was done, you know, several months early, just to show that we take it really seriously and we're making those changes. And on this particular one for number 3, I'll just flag that in terms of the service assessments, that was always intended to be an optional penalty that we could deploy and not, the intent behind the contract language wasn't saying every single time it would be. So I appreciate the auditor recognizing how we use that language in the contract.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Principe.
Thank you, Chair Wright. I do have a question about the infill compliance dashboard. Is that being updated? Do we have safety code data on there?
Councillor, the last update was in 2024, and the 2025 update will happen later this year. We're also changing it to be more current and fluid, so there's ongoing updates instead of just yearly.
Okay, that was going to be my question. Thank you. That's it.
That's all. Okay, thank you. I'll just follow up on a few of the other questions that Ms. Zubat put to us. So the 2 motions that she has mentioned about amending policy C610, which was due back to urban planning in November 2024, and developing a plan that would require direct notification of the adjacent residents. Can you speak to whether those have been met?
They both have. The change in policy that has moved compliance and enforcement resources over to the Planning Development Business Reserve was completed last fall, both through I believe it was through the Fall SOBA as well as the Planning Committee. In terms of notifying adjacent residents, currently the directly adjacent neighbors are notified of the demolition permit that's issued.
Okay, and that's notified by the city or by the developer, the builder?
That's notified by the city through direct mail.
Okay. And, oh, okay, and one other question is our building permit applicants now required to submit a demolition plan, an excavation plan?
So they've always been required to submit demolition permits. Through the PIP, there is both a demolition and a excavation plan that they are intended to follow.
Okay, and is that shared with adjacent property owners?
So which part, I guess, the plan itself?
Yeah.
Or overall? So through the project implementation plan, and I'll look to Steve to augment, it is strongly suggested that that relationship and communication channels be created, and sharing of information in terms of what the plans are. Also through the creation of that plan, identifying any contextual issues that may happen on the property next door. Maybe there's a tree close by or a structure that needs special attention. I'll just pass it to Steve as well to provide a additional answer.
Thank you. And you said suggested, not required.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Just to support that, yes, it is encouraged, but it is not required.
Okay, what would it take to make it a requirement?
We can't require that through the building permit process. The building permit process is strictly about the adherence to the code. And so we can't put in additional requirements that are conditioned on that approval. So that's why we're looking through sort of that highly encouraged voluntary compliance through the PIP, as well as, which is the project implementation plan, sorry, as well as the enforcement through the construction accountability program that we're looking to introduce next year.
Okay, and with regards to transparency, can that be requested by adjacent homeowners? Or would that have?
The project implementation plan?
Yeah, well, yeah, or the demolition and excavation plan.
So I think it's, again, we have to follow certain rules around FOIP or and the privacy of the applicant. So we would have to go through that formal process to release any sort of drawings or plans in that matter. That can be freely shared by the applicant if those communication channels are created and there's a willingness to cooperate through that process.
Okay, so if the applicant is sort of wanting to create a better outcome with the surrounding neighbors, then it might be incumbent upon them to share that with them, correct?
Correct, and that is our advocacy and communications with our builder organizations, that there's responsibilities on all ends and all parties for development, not just the city to enforce compliance, but also developers and builders to create those relationships in the communities that they build and be respectful of their neighbors.
Okay, all right, great. Thank you very much for your answers, and we'll move on to Mr. Madamambe.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a general question on the long outstanding items. So we do have 2 items that have revisions, with dates now September 30, 2025. I do read that, the administration is on target to complete these. So just wanted a comment from the city auditor to understand whether the assessment also holds true on the audit side.
Yes, if you are talking about the grants and subsidies audit recommendations, those ones they are on target. We have not closed them yet. We're still going to need to do some of our follow-up work to do that.
There's also the IT asset management.
Oh, sorry, yeah, and that one as well is also on track to be closed on time.
Okay, thank you. And then a follow-up to that, is that IT asset management one in any way linked to item 7.5, the corporate IT governance audit as well?
I guess in a roundabout way it all would be, but I would say this one is quite directed towards software, I believe, yeah, sorry.
Is that all, Mr. Madamambe?
Oh, that was the question. That was the response.
Yeah, it's not the IT governance is at a much higher level. That audit was at a more operational level on looking at the software requirements.
Okay, so your assessment or your overall evaluation is not impacted by this long outstanding
No.
item? Okay, all right. Then one just general comment or question for you is, are there any systemic, themes emerging from these overdue recommendations, that point to broader weakness in the whole process?
We haven't done a full analysis of that. We do that at the end of each year, looking at the all the recommendations that we've made. So at this point, I don't think I could say there's anything systemic that's coming out of this. There are some themes that we've identified already in some of the recommendations, and we'll be sharing those with the executive leadership team as well, which I do at the end of each year.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I just have one last question in regards to the historic resource management recommendation that's now been put off for about another year and a half. And just wondering if it's due to, I would think that with the scope being narrowed, that it would maybe be easier to complete, or are we still sort of lacking the resources?
No, Councillor Wright, we do have the resources and the project is underway.
Okay, so why the delay?
It's a strategic process. It's something that's involving Indigenous engagement and also engagement with partner organizations like the Edmonton Historical Board and the Edmonton Heritage Council and Edmontonians as a whole.
Okay.
So yeah, we're working through. We're just completing the first what we heard report, and after the election there'll be more engagement as well.
Okay, so proper engagement takes time.
Yeah.
We can't rush through it. Okay, that's all I had. Thank you very much. Thanks. All right, I will put forward the motion, whoops. I guess probably to receive these reports. Let me see. To receive the reports for information for items 7.1 and 7.2. Any questions? Anyone to speak? I will just say in closing then, thank you very much to the auditor for working with all of our departments. And thank you to administration for working with the auditor and recognizing the learning opportunities that come from the audit, so you're not being thumped over the head. So thank you very much. Please vote.
I'm a yes.
Thank you, Mr. Burrows. We have all the votes.
Display the votes, please. That is carried. We'll next move on to items 7.3 and 7.4 in regards to the enterprise risk management audit.
Thank you. We do have a presentation. Get the slides.
There we go.
All right. All right. So an enterprise risk management program, otherwise known as ERM, provides a structured approach to identifying, assessing, and mitigating risks. The approach allows organizations to make informed decisions based on a comprehensive understanding of potential threats and opportunities. The audit team for this audit included Deputy City Auditor Jason Sullivan, Audit and Investigations Manager Leslie Glasbeek, and as well for this audit we engaged an external subject matter expert to conduct the ERM program maturity assessment. I want to thank the management and staff in the Service Innovation and Performance branch for their cooperation and support during the audit, as well as members of the executive leadership team, risk committee, and branch managers and directors who responded to our survey and supported the audit. And Jason's going to do the rest of our presentation.
So the objective of this audit was to determine the maturity of the city's enterprise risk management program against best practices. The maturity assessment differs from our traditional performance audits in the sense that while they are both evaluations, they serve different purposes. A performance audit checks compliance with specific predefined criteria, often over a period of time, while a maturity assessment is a strategic evaluation of the organization's capabilities at a moment in time, measuring along a predefined scale. This assessment can then be used to drive continuous improvement. The scope of this audit included all areas of the city under the authority of the city manager and the city auditor. Overall, we found that the city has made strides to advance the integration of its ERM program into its governance, operations, and planning functions. However, the city's approach does not incorporate some components of a mature program and lacks consistency of ERM practices across functions and leadership levels. Next slide, please. The audit assessed how effectively the city has implemented the 5 interrelated components of enterprise risk management into its ERM approach. We used a 5-stage maturity model to describe the city's capabilities for each component of enterprise risk management, as shown on screen. For 4 of the 5 components, the city is in the preliminary stage. This means that some processes exist, but are either inconsistently applied or not well understood throughout the organization. For one component, strategy and objective setting, the city is at the initial stage. Within the context of ERM, the crux of this component is to define and apply risk appetite and tolerance thresholds for each of the city's defined risk categories. The city does not currently do this, and as such, it impacts the overall rating for this component. It is important to note that the desired level of maturity for each component and how fast the city wants to get to that level is dependent on the city's strategic objectives and risk tolerance. Desired maturity level should be determined by administration with guidance from council. Next slide, please. Within, one more. Oh, sorry. No, yeah, we're good. Thank you. Within the governance and culture component, We found that although the executive leadership team members and branch managers expressed a strong understanding of the city plan and its relationship with ERM, the city lacks clarity around overall ERM program ownership and risk culture and could be better supported by dedicated resourcing. For the strategy and objective setting component, we found that the city lacks a clear and formally defined risk appetite, which sets the tone for other processes within the ERM program. Not having this in place can lead to inconsistent application and weakened alignment between ERM strategy and objective setting. Next, under the performance component, while senior management does make use of dashboards and performance measurement tools, there are inconsistent risk identification and assessment practices across city groups, and performance reviews are often conducted in isolation from strategy, objective setting, and risk management. Within the review and revision component, we found that senior leadership reviews risk registers on a regular basis, and some branches are beginning to explore the use of advanced risk detection tools. However, risk reassessment practices are typically reactive, and there is a lack of overall ERM monitoring. Lastly, under information communication and reporting, we found that there are high-level reports of strategic risks communicated to ELT and Council, which aim to help manage risk and align risk management with strategy. However, there's inconsistent use of technology tools which could aid the process, and staff indicated gaps in how risks are communicated and understood across the broader organization. The 6 recommendations included here were made to enhance the city's maturity within each component and grow the city's ERM program. Enhancing the city's ERM program by integrating risk management into all levels of the organization will strengthen the city's culture of risk awareness, encouraging employees and management to proactively identify and mitigate risk. This will help the city become more resilient to unexpected events and disruptions, promote business continuity, and support the achievement of the city's strategic objectives. I think administration might have a presentation as well, and then we are happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Administration?
So I just have some remarks. This audit recognizes the progress that administration has made in enhancing and evolving our enterprise risk management, with recommendations that will help us mature ERM processes. Administration has been integrating and embedding ERM into the corporate planning process through the strategic planning framework, advancing the integration of ERM into our governance, operations, and planning functions, and through the reporting of risks and reports to the audit committee as required. Administration accepts the auditor's recommendation. To meet these audit recommendations, financial and corporate services will be enhancing the process to ensure that ownership and accurate oversight is met. This includes developing an ERM maturity assessment model to evaluate risk management practices and integrate it within a broader strategic management assessment model. Communication and education materials will be developed and delivered to branch managers and directors to help increase risk awareness, accountability, and enhance ERM capabilities. We're happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you very much. Mr. Matamambe, you selected this item. Would you like to go first?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the presentations and the supporting remarks. So the opening question I have is, just for an attempt to understand how long the ERM program has been, in place for at the city. Is there an indication at this point?
I believe they started it around 2006, and there's been some iterations of it around then. Our assessment was just at the point in time that it is today.
Yeah, so again, it was just, an attempt to get the overall context into how long, the program has been in place, given that the audit assessment is that it's still in its preliminary stage. Yeah, so I'm, just not able to reconcile, a 20-year, time period, and preliminary. So what is administration's overall thought process around this?
I'll start. So I just have to go back and double check the date. So I would say that we had some very basic enterprise risk management processes in place since the mid-2000s, but it's really only been in the last 4 to 5 years that we've had a focused effort on strategic risk management, and that's what the audit committee has been seeing more of the last few years.
Okay, thank you for that. And just linked to that, because overall it appears administration is going to be undertaking some work around this. Just a question for the auditor, given this backdrop, are there any key weaknesses in the ERM framework that necessarily put the city at risk?
I think the biggest improvement that can be made is to set the risk appetite and risk tolerance, and that's going to really move them along on that maturity scale by having that. I mean, I think all the recommendations are important as well. I do also think that the recommendation for a dedicated resource is required. I do think the resources now are not probably enough to move on the maturity scale, so that dedicated resource will definitely support enhancement of the program for sure.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you very much, Councillor Principe.
Thank you, Chair Wright. I have a question about on page 17, the survey results. So the two surveys are fairly similar. Have you and your team received any risk assessment and risk management training? I see 27.9% aren't even aware if they've received training, which I think is fairly high, and I would suggest if they did, it wasn't effective. Is that how you would see
Yeah,
it?
and that does lend itself to the recommendation that we made around providing education on roles and responsibilities to people within the organization as well because of these results.
Right. And so is this something that was supposed to be happening and wasn't happening, or?
Again, this was a maturity assessment, so we weren't assessing them against a criteria that said you should have training. We assessed within the scale, and having that training and providing that education and knowledge and improving the knowledge will increase the risk culture of the city, which would then enhance the effectiveness of their enterprise risk management program.
Right, and maybe I'll ask administration.
I think what so in many places where we're doing enterprise risk management and working within a committee structure and working with departments and branches, we haven't had formal training, but it's more been training through the process of doing the procedures. So we understand the need to formalize the training, and we're working to do that.
Okay, will it be just a part of onboarding?
I don't think it would be necessarily a part of onboarding, but part of our assessment of training will be who should get what training and what is the best method in which to deliver that.
And I would say right now, like as far as maturity goes, we're kind of pushing through the maturity of what enterprise risk management means to kind of building the strategic frameworks that we have. So part of what we're doing is not necessarily the formal training side of it, and that's what we'll be leaning into, but really looking at using risk management to guide where our strategies go for the future. So when we talk about structural budget conversations, that's on the risk register. As we start building our programs and portfolios moving forward, it's about bringing that in a more formal way that people understand these are linked to the risk registers that we create as a city. We haven't done a good job of that, but I think that the formal kind of training will link those things together as we start to be more direct at those linkages between A and B.
So I'm wondering, is this going to be more strategic then, that certain people are taking this kind of training, or is it going to be for everyone?
Well, I think there's different levels for each kind of level in the organization. Obviously, the branch manager and director level, these people, are creating the strategies as we move forward in the organization, as we start to drive what budget impact looks like, what does it mean to the tax levy. They'll have a different level of education versus the person that probably is at the grassroots level who identify a lot of these risks too. So how do we do those risk assessments? How do we make sure that's formalized at every level of the organization in the way that it makes sense? And I think it'll be tailored to different levels of the organization, contingent on how we receive the information.
Yeah, and I was going to suggest that possibly, the frontline workers, maybe the snowplow,
Huge part of it.
will have good ideas and say, look, this is a risk here.
100%,
the
yeah.
design of the road or such, right?
Yeah, and I
That's
think we've
something
shown
that
that
will
in
be
the Snow Race
considered.
program. Like a lot of that program was designed from the ground up. So hearing from operators, understanding what the risks are that they're seeing on the street, and how do we mitigate that in a programmed approach.
Right, okay, good. And I see that there's a budget request in order to, is that necessary?
I think anytime we're looking at program objectives, it's going to be a conversation of service level versus impact, right? So we'll go through the program. Obviously, that is one of the recommendations that came through the report. Building up this program is important for the city to be able to identify what these risks look like, mature the program to a place where we think we're getting to. And we're not, when we look at the maturity spectrum of this, it's not about being as far right as you can get, but it's also about progressing where we can get to. And you can't always do that with the folks and the people that you have. When I always talk about people, budget, time, equipment, these are roles that will play into that conversation. But when we put it in front of council, it'll be with that context of this is what we can achieve with the resources that we put into this program. And then we have to land as a city to say, what's that acceptable amount of risk that we're willing to take in the program? Because that's, I think, at the end of the day, where you end up on the maturity spectrum is going to be what kind of risk are we willing to accept as a city?
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Principe. So as we mature, we will see some of these things, like training and that sort of roll out more across the organization, right?
Well, I would say our expectation is that we would see people responding to this audit in a different way the next time it gets audited, which, instead of people saying it's 27% don't understand the connection between A and B, that should lift significantly once we start talking about risks in terms of strategy approach, how that influences ours when we sit in front of council and create those plans moving forward.
Because there's never really been too much of a focus on the risk management.
Well, I wouldn't say that. I think there is. I've been here for 10 years. There's always been a focus on how do we build a budget that mitigates the problems that we have as a city and moving that forward. I don't think we've formalized really showing council how we've made those linkages between A and B, and we need to do a better job at that, not only for council but for our own employees.
Okay. And maybe to show the public that we're doing things behind the scenes as well to, like you said, that impact property taxes and
absolutely
and operations and that. Okay. Yeah, I think hiring the risk management professional and consolidating it, I think under Stacy's department, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
It, in fact, has been there for a while, but we're looking at whether we need to pull other elements into the department.
Okay, perfect. And then, so that's something that should be prioritized, I think, in the budget, whether it is through, tax levy increase or finding resources within other departments. If you are sort of consolidating it from other groups, can we pull in financial resources from those other areas? So. That's all I have. Anybody else? No, Mr. Matamambe, do you want to move the motion?
Yes, I will shortly, Madam Chair. I just wanted to, throw back a comment to the administration, which is in a form of a question, because I wanted to understand how progress, will be monitored, and, what measurable outcomes, should the audit committee expect to see as we move forward.
I'm just scrolling through the recommendations because I think the response to one of the recommendations is for us to look holistically at what are the ways that we're going to mature our processes and then how we measure that. So I don't have I'm not sure in a position today to talk about like how we'll specifically measure it, but I would echo some of Mr. Robar's comments. Like when we come back to this a year or two from now, we'll be looking to make sure that the individuals involved with the risk management process feel like they've been appropriately trained and that we're seeing that the risk information is making its way through all of our reports and into elements of the budget. I think we do those things. I don't think we always are we don't necessarily disclose the amount of detail that would maybe be helpful for our employees and Edmontonians who look at those reports.
Thank you. And thank you, Madam Chair. And with that, I'll take this opportunity to move the recommendation that the September 3, 2025 Office of the City Auditor Report, OCA 03169, be received for information.
And the response as well?
Combined with the responses,
Okay,
yes.
thank you very much. Okay, anyone to speak? Mr. Matamambe, do you want to close?
Yeah, just a thank you to the city auditor for the informative report. Certainly did allow a conversation to occur, and looking forward to seeing how the agreed corrective actions will be implemented over time. So thank you.
Thank you very much, and please vote.
We have all the votes.
Display the votes, please. That is carried. And we will move on to item 7576 in regards to IT governance. And a presentation, I'm sure, is coming.
Yeah, we do have another short presentation here for you. And so this is on our corporate IT governance business technology investment audit. The audit team for this audit included Deputy City Auditor Sharon Han, Senior Auditor Fahim Rajabali, Auditor Alan Manuel, and our data science team Alfred Apea and Jasmine Zip. I also want to thank the management and staff in the Open City and Technology branch for their cooperation and support during this audit, as well as members of the executive leadership team and the Technology Investment Advisory Group who supported the audit. Sharon is now going to do the rest of the presentation.
Thanks, Janine. So this audit objective was to determine whether the city effectively governs business technology investments to help achieve its strategic objectives. This audit did not cover investments made by EPS or Edmonton Public Library. The audit also did not cover IT project execution, which falls outside of the corporate business technology investment framework. Overall, we found that the city does not effectively govern business technology investments. Next slide. We had 5 key findings here. 1, the city does not have a clearly communicated owner who is accountable for results and has the authority to enforce compliance. 2, the city has outdated admin directives and procedures to support the framework. 3, key parties do not have a full understanding of foundational principles to make informed decisions. 4, the city does not have consistent reporting for business technology investments and a complete portfolio of these investments. And 5, the city does not evaluate the effectiveness of the corporate technology investment framework. Therefore, we've made 5 recommendations to the city manager to address these risks. You'll see them on the screen here. Effectively governing business technology investments will align these expenditures with the city's strategies and helps the city maximize value. And I'll pass it all over to administration for their presentation.
So good morning. Information technology is essential to all city services, and it's important that our technology investments are directed to the highest priorities and are an effective use of public money. The IT governance audit recognizes that the city has a framework and processes in place to oversee technology investments, but recommends clarifying the process owner, their authorities, and the decision-making process. Administration accepts the recommendations. The city is committed to continuous improvement, and we expect to implement all recommendations by the end of 2027, with some planned activities and actions already underway. To meet these audit recommendations, Financial and Corporate Services will work with the Office of the City Manager to align our approach to ensure citywide benefits that are focused on improving resident experiences while balancing investments that will minimize disruptions and maximize data for decision-making. This can be achieved by leveraging existing enterprise systems, prioritizing security and privacy, and reducing complexity, all while better managing long-term costs and limiting technology redundancy. Thank you, and we're happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you very much. And Stacy, you keep moving up a row.
There isn't room for all of, well, there is now. I was going to say there wasn't room for all of us before, so I just moved up to be with the team.
Thank you. Thank you for staying with us. Mr. Monamambe, did you want to start with your questions?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the presentation and the comments. My first question is just an attempt to understand from the city administration, like what concrete steps the administration has in place to strengthen the IT investment governance in the next budget cycle.
So I think I'm going to start with like one of our more pressing actions, and one of the most critical things for us is we know where the account, so within finance and corporate services falls Open City and Technology. They're responsible for the technology governance framework. One of the challenges is it's difficult for me as a leader to compel compliance throughout the corporation, and it's harder to take actions than say, I don't have the same type of actions that I can take with, say, something like credit card compliance, where if you're not compliant, I can take your card away. This is an area where we have to work together, and us figuring out how to work together and all pull in the same direction with a framework is the largest thing that I think we have to deal with in order to make this a more cohesive approach to building out our budget over the next 4 years and our technology over the next 10 to 20 years.
Thank you for that. And would there be a clear link, between technology investments and strategic or corporate outcomes, over the period? Yeah.
Yes, there will be, and our existing framework has that link, but what we're missing is the mechanism to enforce that.
Okay, thank you. Then a question for the city auditor. In your approach, are there post-implementation reviews, for IT projects? Are they mandatory?
Sorry, I actually, they aren't exactly mandatory, is what I'm being told here. Sorry, I don't know the answer off the top of my head. Administration would probably be able to answer that one better than me.
Okay. No, I meant from the audit side,
Maybe if you could rephrase the question from the audit side?
Yeah, just understanding if, from your audit plan, you have mandatory, post-implementation reviews of major IT projects.
Oh, no, so we do not have them. Sorry, I misunderstood the question. We do not have, from our office, it would be based on a risk assessment. So if there was a reason to do that, then it would come up as part of our audit plan. However, there's nothing to say that I have to do them. It would be something that we would be looking for the business areas to be doing, and I guess part of even doing this audit as a whole came out from that, but nothing that tells me that I must do it.
Okay, and from the results of this audit, do you see a need to at least consider having that in place?
Yeah, there's definitely something that we'll consider as we identify risks with those systems. We have in the past, chosen to do audits on systems or implementation of systems. It's always a matter of the timing on those when they're implemented and the amount of time after it's implemented before an audit makes sense. So we definitely will be considering that as we do our planning for next year.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So identifying what gets audited is either through the business sees the risk, you see the risk, or audit committee and other counselors see the risk, right?
Yeah, it's quite a large process that we undertake to determine which audits to include in our plan, which does include gathering information from all those sources that you mentioned, but also looking to see what's happening in other cities, what's happening in industry, that type of thing. We do a lot of work to identify and assess those risks before deciding what to put in the plan.
Okay. And then before you close the recommendations for the risks that have been identified, that helps to reduce the risk, right?
Yeah. Like we wouldn't say go back into an area that has open audit recommendations because we would just be identifying those risks again. So we wait for them to close them before we would potentially go back to do another audit.
Okay, thank you. And then Stacey, you said that we're taking a more comprehensive approach now. I think, but by investing in this comprehensive approach, approach, there might be savings in the long run?
So I'm hesitant.
Potential for savings?
I am hesitant to use the word savings, but I think what it means is that we effectively deploy our technology. That means that we are spending the money in a way that maximizes returns to the organization and to Edmontonians.
Okay, thank you. And I see the auditors nodding their heads as well in agreement. Okay, thank you very much. That's all I have. Anybody else have questions? No? Okay. Mr. Matamambe, do you want to make the motion?
Yes, ma'am. I will, Madam Chair, move the recommendation that the Corporate IT Governance Business Technology Investment Report and the comments be received for information.
Thank you very much. Anyone to speak? Mr. Matamambe to close.
Yeah, again, another thank you to the City Auditor and the administration for putting forward a good report and providing concrete corrective actions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll vote.
We have all the votes.
Display the votes, please. That is carried. Okay, we have no further items. We have no motions pending that I'm aware of, but I think we do have some notices of motion. And Councillor Rutherford, did you want to go ahead?
Sure, that came fast. Just give me 1 second. At the next regular council meeting, I'll be making the following motion: that administration provide a report that explores options to reduce the impact of the maximum allowable height in the RS small-scale residential zone to adjacent properties. Date first quarter 2027, Urban Planning Committee. That's my first one, and then I have another one. Just, again, pulling it up.
When you're ready.
Okay, and this one is, again, one that I will make because we're not allowed to make them at public hearing, right? This one was technically a subsequent, but we ran out of time at the public hearing. So should I direct it to the next regular public hearing or council?
Council.
Okay, so at the next regular council meeting, I'll move that administration prepare amendments to bylaw 20996, North Saskatchewan River Valley Area Redevelopment Plan, including direct references to relevant provisions of the city plan to clarify requirements for Indigenous engagement and compliance with the commitments of the Indigenous framework, and return to a future City Council public hearing for consideration. And 2, that administration prepare a report outlining the current legal requirements for Indigenous engagement on city-owned land in the North Saskatchewan River Area Redevelopment Plan, privately owned land within North Saskatchewan River Area Redevelopment Plan area, all lands covered by the top of bank policy C542, and all lands below bank in the North Saskatchewan River Valley and Ravine System, and make recommendations to changes to ensure consistency and alignment with adequate Indigenous engagement within the City of Edmonton as it relates to the North Saskatchewan River Valley, and return to an Urban Planning Committee meeting in 2026 Q2.
Thank you very much. And is that it? Anybody else with notice of motions? No? Okay, before we adjourn, thank you all very much. It's been a pleasurable 4 years and opportunity to learn lots through the audit process. So I will now call this meeting adjourned. Thank you.